it just a tad bit at the beginning, since we like to do little cold opens. But yeah, I don't know. I want to hear your take. What's your thoughts?
I feel like if y'all gonna paint me as the villain, then I'll be the villain. Until y'all I put this in the dead end sports chat. Ken vehemently disagreed with me. Kyle, Manny, all the people in the chat were disagreeing with me originally. I said, look,
he going full Randy Orton, huh?
Yeah, y'all want to paint me as the bad guy and do this thing about guns when America got a gun problem and everybody has guns, and y'all get mad at me for liking guns, then do something about it. Change the rule. Until y'all change the letter of the law, I can do this because everybody else does it. Don't get mad at me now for doing it. You know how I feel. Y'all know how I feel about authority. Yeah, he can do it. Why not?
In the NBA, they don't have any rules.
There's no letter of the law. There's nothing against justice. Like, you can't grab your crotch, or you can't do suggestive gestures like that. But we talking about the gun thing. Shit, Austin Reed's been doing that all season. He been doing it all season. But now y'all want to say something? Nope, can't do it.
So where did the warning come from? When they randomly warned Ja about the gun gesture, was there a backstory behind it?
Not that I know of. That's what it was, a random warning. It just didn't look good on national TV with your background. And I know him as a young dude probably thinking, and I mean, he probably didn't get, well, I ain't gonna say that. Him as a young dude probably thinking, and his dad probably was thinking the same way. It's like, bro, they picking on me, so I'm doubling down. Ain't no letter of the law to say I can't do this. I don't want y'all to single me out and say, hey, you know what, man? You shouldn't do that because of the stuff that happened 2 years ago. Like, no, get out of here.
Fair enough. Ken, what you got?
I didn't mind the grenade. I actually thought it was hilarious.
That shit was funny.
I feel like it's something that in my younger days I would have done. And to a certain degree, I'm with Spike. Like, you are targeting me for doing this thing that everyone does. But at the same time, I feel like there may be some things that we don't know, like some stipulations based on him coming back to the league after his suspension that doesn't allow him to do things like that haven't been disclosed, that we haven't heard yet. And if that's the case, then he shouldn't do it. Because at that point, now I've specifically told you cannot do this or anything similar to this because of what you did. The other league didn't do the things that you did, therefore they can do those actions. You just can't, because you decided to get on IG or wherever on social media and act a fool. So
I said I was indifferent. I really don't have an opinion, mainly because my only concern would be don't mess up the bag. Don't mess up the opportunity that you're in. Don't give them a reason to set you back. But now that I'm learning that, because all I heard about this story was they issued a warning, and I'm like, all right, then. And then he did it the next night or the next game, and then the grenade whole situation. So I'm like, he's obviously trolling him, which like I said, I can appreciate and find funny. But don't mess up the bag of the opportunity. But then I'm thinking about it in real time, like, you know what? Certain people, to quote The Wire like we always do, Spike, a man got to have a code. And there are certain people in this world who are cool with saying, you know what? I'll sacrifice, and this is going to sound crazy to say out loud, but to each his own. I might sacrifice a $300 million contract and be cool with the $220 million contract. If I get to be me and do what I want, versus that $80 million to me, not me personally, but to certain people, that $80 million, like the things I can do with $300 million, I can do with $220. And I think a lot of people might think that way, or some people might think that way. And other people are going to look at it like, yo, I ain't never leaving $80 million on the table. I don't care what's going on. I ain't never leaving $80 million on the table. But if you are someone like Ja that feel like you're being targeted and you want to make a point, like, I'm still getting $220 million. I'd rather sacrifice whatever it is, or sacrifice maybe some deals with Nike and keep it authentic, and maybe be this try to be this generation's Iverson. I don't know what he's on, but it is what it is, man. I'm never for anybody being censored or stopped from what they're doing, especially like you said. The biggest thing is everybody's doing it. But I saw a buddy from Detroit. I saw a dude from Detroit. I don't know if y'all saw that. He hit a three and was about to do it, and it stopped. And there was a genuine look like, oh, shit. I don't want this problem.
Probably
So
'cause
that's
he
what
was
made
so
me
used
think,
to
is there
the trade.
something deeper? Yeah.
When you speak of the money difference, you're talking about him not getting a max contract because of the baggage?
I'm just saying that, let's say for whatever reason they say you keep doing this, you're hurting your image. Instead of offering you the max, we're gonna do like when Luka got traded, he's disqualified for the supermax. Right? We're gonna do something to get rid of you and all the content.
Oh, they may trade him or something. I got you.
Yeah, like Lou Will and Chandler Parsons we're talking about maybe needs to change the scenery. Had no idea in all these years that Lou Will was from Memphis.
Yep.
But yeah, I don't know. All the conversation that comes with it, it's just like, bro, like let it go. Are we having the same conversation about every single person that's on some trash?
I think that's the biggest reason he's mad, because we're not having the same conversations that we're having about Ja. But he did, admittedly so, put himself in this position with the IG stuff, as Ken said. But at some point, you got to get, like, from his perspective as a 25-year-old man, like, man, I got to get over that. And from corporate America's perspective, they like, we not.
That's fair enough. Y'all hear the voices. We back again. Another week in the books. Chapter 25. I'm Rich. Sitting here with the legend Spike Lou. Spike Lou, how you feeling, brother?
I'm good. How about you, my brother?
I'm doing well, man. We are not alone. We are joined by a very special guest. Excited to have him on this week. Speaking of legends, yeah, absolutely, man. Founder of Dead End Hip Hop and Dead End Sports. Producer and editor of Is the Mic Still On podcast. I'm sure there's countless Dead End Studios. I'm sure there's countless other things. I don't even want to run through the accolades because I know there were things that'll be missed. Ken, welcome to the show. How you feeling today, brother?
Hola. Muy bien. I'm doing well.
Always good, man. Appreciate you giving your time, speaking to us. Looking forward to getting into it this episode. Spike Lou, you know what I was thinking about?
What's that?
We haven't really talked about how the week went in a while. You know what I mean? We used to have some conversation about how did our week go, and I want to do that. But real quick, before we do, I do want to read a couple of comments from our loyal bookworms here that we got on YouTube. Public Enemy B, shout out our guy, man. He commented, dope convo as always. Portia is y'all Dominique Foxworth. Always a good time when she's on, man. Shout out to that.
Foxworth,
hey, man. Portia is one of one. That's for sure. And then Dark Grapes 49. LOL. Portia sound like she wanted to eat. I don't know. I think have her cake and eat it too. I think that's the whole point of it. With the relationship part of things. Of course, you're not going to come at your lady with everything, but I think the point was that you want to foster an environment where you feel comfortable enough to come to your partner with anything instead of hiding or lying. Good convo overall, though, front to back. Once again, LOL, kind of random, but I think it'd be entertaining to hear y'all discuss the movie I Think I Love My Wife with y'all and I think Spike and Mo on. All the relationship perspectives and ideas in that movie would make it a nice segment on an episode, in my opinion. We appreciate that comment. Portia is always sparks some conversation. I will say that. As far as movies go, there is still frames per second. Shout out to Spike Lou. I know you partake in that as well as Ken. You're on frames per second, right? Not you don't just edit it, correct? And then also I'm a part of a movie podcast as well, the Culture Garden podcast. So check out those two platforms for any movie takes. We have not discussed I Think I Love My Wife, but we have done a few Tyler Perry movies just for the entertainment factor of it. I'll make sure I put a link. I Think I Love My Wife? Yeah, you know. Come on, man.
I don't think I've seen who in it.
Come on, man. Shirley Go Up the Mountain, man. Janet Jackson.
Yeah.
Like, come on.
It
ain't no
with
Medea
Jill
shit.
Fox.
Yeah.
With Jill Fox.
Jill Scott.
Excuse me. Jill Scott. I said Jill
Bro,
Fox.
the disrespect.
That's what I said, man. Come on, we can't let you do that.
And that sounds straight up like a Tyler Perry movie, bro. Title.
It do.
But
Jill Fox.
But nah, Spike, man. Well, yeah, like I said earlier, man, we haven't done that in a while. What you do this week that you're proud of?
What did I do this week that I was proud of, man? I know me and you were talking about one of the reasons that we're having this conversation with Ken, because we want to continue to build out what we're doing in media and put more business format to it. So I started working on that business plan. Me and you will have a meeting about it. So I put some thoughts on paper and some goals and some things that I thought were cool just to run them by you. So that was probably my favorite thing I did this week.
Nice.
And I bought my mom this book So there's this book on Amazon. I heard about it on a podcast. So it was like, tell me your story. So it's essentially a prompt book that you buy
I
for your
got it.
parents. You got it? Yeah.
Yeah.
So I got one for my mom, and it's like just her talking about her childhood so I can read it. You know, we get into that age where you want to know that stuff and it's interesting, and you never really sit down and talk to your parents about it. So I sent her a copy of it. She'll get it tomorrow. I'm excited to see when she starts working on it. So I'm very proud of that too.
It's funny you say that. I'll talk about that here in a second. Ken, what about you? What you do this week that you were proud of?
Yesterday was Wednesday. Yeah, I met with Rod. We've been who was one of the guys I started the show with. And we finally got around to updating some of the graphics on the network. Mainly dead end hip hop. We updated the header there and stuff like that. It took about 3 hours. We still got like 4 more to go. So it's a process. And then I realized that the volume of things that I'm asking for is a lot. So it's probably going to take patience. Because I remember when we had the meeting, he said he can get it all done in a week. But Rod is very meticulous, and he doesn't just do anything. So I think that expectation that we set initially probably wasn't well thought out. But we're making progress, and I think that that's dope. And probably the most important thing that I did this week, though, was I finally took action on a new show that I'm working on. I got a lot of ideas that I'm cooking up.
Yeah.
And this
I know
was
the
one
feeling.
this one has been around maybe since 2013, 2014. Last I checked. But it's Dead in Soul. I'm finally starting the R&B podcast. There's actually 2 things. R&B podcast and a political podcast.
Okay.
Sort of a solo show. So the first show I'm working on is about Anita Baker. And I chose her because while everybody knows Anita Baker, I think her story is untold. And to a certain degree, I feel like she's underappreciated. Everybody talk about Marvin. They talk about Stevie. They talk about Whitney. They talk about, I think Anita Baker is kind of overlooked sometimes. So, but it's a different type of show that I normally do. So this one is a little bit more produced. But yeah, I recorded the first episode today. So
What's up?
Yeah, so now I just got to put the rest of it together and work out the kinks. But yeah,
We'll definitely circle back on that. That's big time. Congratulations to you on that as well. I'm sure that the idea of getting an idea out of your head after 10 years has to be exhilarating, I'm sure. But we'll talk about that here shortly. For me, the biggest thing I did, man, the thing I'm most proud of this week was taking my own advice and listening to myself, like my gut, my body, the whole nine. Next week, I was talking to Spike before we started recording. Next week, we're gonna have an episode where the main topic is gonna be grief. A conversation I don't know that's openly discussed, maybe not amongst men as much as it should be in a public platform. Next Saturday, April 19th, will be the 5-year anniversary of my dad passing. You know, my dad passed unexpectedly. And it's hard to explain, and I'll talk about it a little more next week, but ever since then, like this time of the year, there's a feeling, right? There's like this, it's like your body knows around this time of the year, at some point in your life, something happened to you. You know what I mean? And I say that because it's not like you're sitting there thinking about, oh, here comes the anniversary. It's not even on your mind like that. But your body tells you, and there's certain things that I've recognized within myself over the past 5 years. You know, year 1, year 2, that's obviously hard and it's difficult. And it creeps up on you in March, maybe late February. And maybe that whole damn first quarter spilling in the second quarter is you in a funk, right? You know what I mean? You down, you might be depressed. You get through that and you say, all right, then I can get past it. I'm in year 3. You think you good. You get through March and April coming, boom, it's at your door. And each year gets a little bit, pushed back. But this past week, it was just like, damn, it just came over me all over again. Like last week I was in one mood and this week it was a whole different thing. And instead of trying to fight it, I just said, you know what? take your time. And I actually talked about some things, and I like talked about my dad with people, and it helped me so much versus just kind of going in my own routine. And it even made me want to take ownership of the whole situation. So we didn't even record Culture Garden this week because we were supposed to record yesterday. I was like, man, I ain't got it. Like this was gonna be a goofy episode, man. It's not gonna be worth anybody's time. Every time I record, me and Rachel always talk about it. I always treat it as this is somebody's first time ever hearing me. So I always want to put my best effort into it. And I was like, man, I ain't got it. I just ain't got it. And I was like, you know what? School was like, man, I'm proud of you for even saying that. I'm proud of you for even recognizing it because normally you just try to push through. And it dawned on me like, you know what? I'm gonna take a little bit of ownership on this. My pops love movies. It's probably part of where my me becoming a cinephile came from. He introduced me to so much. I'm like, you know what? Every week, I'm going to honor him, and we're gonna have like a film that he loved. We're gonna break that down on the show. I'm like, you know what I'm saying? Just something to look forward to versus dreading once that time of year comes, and continue to keep the legacy on and all that stuff. So a long-winded way of saying, man, it was very hard to not keep the train rolling and not keep going on with what you need. But it was needed. It was necessary, man. And I'm glad I could. And hopefully that encourages people to take a moment if you need one. And we'll talk, like I said, a little bit more about it next week and get a little deeper. So, yeah.
It's gonna be a good conversation.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to it. But the reason, can we call you a mogul? You a mogul? What's up? You taking that title? You a media mogul? Or are you taking that title? I'll put the crown on you. I think you should accept it.
Nah. I'm a little bit too humble for that, but
I feel that.
I'm just trying to make it happen, bro.
Listen, I understand completely. Really wanted to have a conversation. The journey, the origin, the peaks and valleys of, I guess, betting on yourself. And a lot of people know your work, but might not know your story. How all of this came to be. Funny thing, this was right when I first met Spike, maybe a couple conversations in, a couple episodes in, should I say. And I was still living in Cincinnati at the time. And I remember the radio came on and I heard this ad for Dead End Hip Hop.
Oh, damn.
And I just remember thinking, hold on, Dead End. And when you don't know something or the gratitude or how big something is, it kind of strikes you as a little bit like, hold on, am I tripping? Like, ain't that the same thing Spike a part of? And I looked it up. I'm like, damn, they reaching in Cincinnati. I thought they were in Atlanta. I didn't know what exactly it was. And I started doing some research. Like, oh, this is impressive. This is dope. Like, this is a real thing that expands further than anything that I guess as they would say is local. Like, this is something that somebody took some time in, built over the years, has a real audience. And I was like, oh, I didn't know it was like that. And that's what even got me into Dead End and started listening, because I knew Spike did a million things. And then I started learning, who's behind it. And that's how we got here. So I just want to ask you, for starters, did you always see yourself here?
Looking back, I see the signs.
Mm-hmm.
I think I've been sharing some of this publicly on some of the shows, depending on whatever we're talking about. But most recently, I was talking to my wife, and I was telling her that I remember when I would play with the Matchbox cars or stuff as a kid. I was always the businessman going to an office, getting out with a briefcase, walking up to some suite or whatever. And that's just as a kid, not even thinking about that. So I don't know where it came from, but that's just what I've always wanted to be. Right around college is where the music part came in. I always had a love for music, as a lot of people do. I would sit around my grandmother's house and write lyrics out and sing along with New Edition and rap along to LL Cool J and all the other stuff. So I've always had a deep appreciation from it. And that came from my dad, who would sit around and play records and talk to me about records and stuff like that. And in college, I was going to, as a lot of kids, it's like, at least for me, it was, I'm gonna be a doctor, or I'm gonna be a lawyer, that sort of thing. And it just wasn't meant for me. I would have been fine doing it, but the music was calling. And I remember when I was working in a factory, we could not wear headphones because it was a factory, so forklifts and stuff like that. And I was always sneak headphones in and wrap my head around so I can listen to it was R. Kelly's second album, the one with You Remind Me of My Jeep on it. And I was listening to that. I know
Is it 12 play?
yeah,
12
no,
play.
12 play was the first one.
Oh, see, I'm thinking about the other one that he had with your boy and them.
Yeah. You're probably thinking about
Hey
Tiki
DJ.
Too.
What
Oh,
I'm
yeah,
thinking
yeah,
about,
yeah.
I was thinking, Hey DJ,
Oh.
that one with the blue cover was his first one, but you
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
12 play was his first one, and then the next one after that with the
first solo.
Yeah.
Yeah, for people
Because
listening.
was it R. Kelly in Public Announcement?
It was R. Kelly in Public Announcement.
Public
Right,
Announcement.
right. So
it was called R. Kelly.
Mm-hmm.
That's the name of that album.
Yep, and that completely different from his first album, which took some getting used to. But I know it's sacrilegious to mention the man's name nowadays, but
Hey, we've had the conversation on here.
Yeah, we've had the R. Kelly
the
conversation.
facts are the facts, bro. What am I gonna do? So it is what it is. But yeah, so that's what I was doing, and I would buy Anthology. I don't know if you guys remember the Anthology disc that they would have the Spinners and Donny Hathaway, Marvin, just to find the songs that I haven't heard before. So I was always just like digging for like these gems. And I would sit there and I would read the liner notes and just obsess over just this history that are in these anthology discs. And man, I was buying classical music with Chopin and all this other stuff. So
what age are we talking right now?
Oh, still a teenager. Yeah, I've been
Okay.
around a teenager doing that other stuff because my love started to grow for it. Just different other forms of music. And then, we get to the factory and stuff like that. So, and I was like, man, I think I want to be like, go on radio and do something in media and music.
Mm-hmm.
Music was my love. And I wanted to do something with music, and being on radio was the closest thing I can get to. And I did that for 2.5 years, and I worked in television for 3 before I moved to Atlanta. And timing, a lot of things is luck, because when I went into the program for broadcasting, they were just starting a radio station in Meridian, Mississippi, and I was able to get an internship there. Eventually got my own weekend slot playing blues music, and that's when I discovered that I could identify like hits, even though I wasn't. You around, you hear blues music, but you see people. So I would go with the DJ at the time. He would take me under the wing. So I would go into the club with him, and I would be playing. I would listen to these albums and listen to album cuts, and I would play it, and then they become hit and become requested. So and then the other DJs would start playing it. So music has just always been something that I've always been overly obsessed with, and the two just combined and merged together to become this thing. And with everything else that I'm doing and that I have a love for, or grew to have a love for. So looking back, yeah, definitely I could see the different paths that led me here.
Let me ask you this, just to get a little bit. I want to paint the full picture for everybody listening and for myself. Where are you from?
Meridian, Mississippi.
Okay, you're from Meridian, and you went to school down there, I'm assuming, because you mentioned the radio station.
Yep, Meridian Community College, 2 years. I was accepted to Mississippi State University.
Okay.
And I didn't go because I'm a mama's boy, and my mom started crying. So I was like, all right, well, I'll do 2 years and get you adjusted to me leaving, and then I'll dip out. But that didn't happen. I ended up coming to Atlanta.
How far was Mississippi State from Meridian?
Maybe hour and a half or something like that. So
She just didn't want you to leave.
I've been there all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Tough adjustment. Okay, then. What did you start your major as? Were you always in broadcasting or journalism, communications when you got to school? Okay, then.
Yep.
And then
Yeah, my
was-
freshman year, I can't remember what I signed up for. I have to check, but I was a freshman, so it went ugly. And I was
know
on
how that goes.
I was
I
on
know that
academic
story.
academic
I know that story. I
suspension,
got
bro.
that letter. I got that.
Facts.
Yeah.
You
I
have
was
to
on
sit out a semester because your
That was
grade
it.
is not.
Probably one of the best things to happen because I should not have been on academic suspension. I'm damn near straight A student. So, and if I made less than an A, it was because I was running around in the streets doing something I didn't have any business doing and not applying myself, which is damn near a story of my life in some instances. But academic suspension, that wasn't it. But it worked out because I had to actually go out and work in a factory. It's hot, it's cold when it's cold. Like, yeah, the climate isn't controlled. And I'm doing temp jobs, man. I worked in a landfill before, doing like a day job and stuff like that. So yeah, it was rough. And I took my ass right back.
When it came to the internship, were you back in school when this happened, or is this just something you saw and said like, nah,
I was back in school.
I have to get. Okay, so you're back in school and you're like, I have to get this. I have to be a part of this. Was it one of those decisions? Because I'm always fascinated by. It's going to be difficult to explain it, but everybody out there who has a passion can understand what I'm about to say. Sometimes things just feel like that's supposed to happen. You don't even question it when it's right. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like other people might say, like that doesn't, why would you do it? Like, and for you, it's like it doesn't. Nothing else makes sense. Like there's no choice. It's almost the story that my man's told in Rounders, right? The lawyer. He talked about his parents wanted him to be a rabbi, and Matt Damon's character said, did they ever get over the choice? And he said, what choice? Like this was my life. This is who I was supposed to be. Was it an aha, like light bulb moment for you? Like this is just naturally going to be on course, or was it just like, I'm gonna give it a shot. If it doesn't work out, I'm gonna try to find another temp job or something like that. Were you locked in onto it? Okay.
Yeah. No, I was in. I planned out a career just being a radio DJ because I just love listening and playing music. So that was it. Starting out a small market and trying to work my way up to a bigger market. And I love R&B music. It was an R&B station. I love hip hop, but it was a new station. I couldn't get there. I tried, but I couldn't get over there. But no, I was home there. It was the number one station in the city. So and I'm a junior, so it was always funny because people would go to my dad and say, "Oh man, yeah, I heard you on the radio. Hey man, you playing them joints or whatever they would say back in the day." He was like, "Nah, that's not me. That's my son." And we both share like a similar voice too, so people would get it confused. But nah, yeah, it was always it, man. Like that was it. Once I was there, it was nothing else.
What took you to Atlanta?
So this is where the bigger picture came into play. This is where the two worlds start merging together because my plan in coming to Atlanta was this. I was going to get a degree in computer science. And I was always really, really good with computers and all the other stuff. It just and I just could understand it. And it just came natural. So I was gonna get a degree in computer science and coding and save all because I'm frugal and I don't need much to live. Save all that money and start a production company. And geez, man, you taking me back now. So thinking about it, because back then, they made fairly decent money. And I knew that I could live a very frugal lifestyle to where I could just stack all my money to start that business. And that's why I came here to do that. And and it was man, this is crazy. Yeah, that was the plan. It was to come here to do that. And it was a startup production company. I was friends with one of the guys that I came up here with. He was a singer. So he used to sing, and I wanted to produce music. And I wanted to write songs. So I used to write songs and produce music, and was in a singer group with him. And we would found some other guy that went to school with us, and we would sit there and practice and sing the songs and all kind of other stuff. So it was crazy. So yeah, talking it back and talking it out, yeah, it was entertainment in some form or fashion was, I think, like the guy said, there was no other choice, even though I went other paths.
I'm gonna put a pin in that. I'm looking at this whole thing. My producer brain is looking at this as a flash forward moment. All right, so I want to put a pin on that. We're gonna come right back to it. This is kind of where I want to tag Spike in, because it's funny how similar your stories are in regard to being in a,
I was thinking the same thing.
Yeah, like being in the city, kind of starting what you want to do, knowing what you want to do, maybe not all the way there, but then picking up and realizing I'm going to take this to Atlanta. Now, we've heard Spike and his journey, and kind of this was just kind of the next thing to do. Like, I wasn't doing anything in Nashville, so I'm going to come to Atlanta. You also did not come along similar to you, Ken. Like, there's some people that you came with to kind of make it feel a little bit more comfortable. I want to learn, and Spike, I want to hear from your perspective, knowing that you had On Deck TV show.
Mm-hmm.
When did you and Ken cross paths, and what was that like for you in regard to your podcasting career? Because if I'm not mistaken, before you started doing podcasts such as Frank for a Second, is the mic still on? You were just doing On Deck TV show and doing some production stuff, correct? So when did y'all cross paths, and how did that change your perspective of what you could do in this space?
Great question. Just to point out a couple of things about your story too, as well, Ken. You pointed out the similarities, and it's some stuff that you wouldn't even be able to point out, Rich, because I've never really shared them. But I resonate so much with what he's saying. Like, I used to do the same thing with like CD lyric books, sit there and look at them. I learned songs in 2 days. Like, I remember reading UGK's Riding Dirty. Like, that shit was like the Bible. Like, I was like, damn, man, and this is back when you bought a CD and you could open it up and the lyrics were on the inside of it. And my friends used to make fun of me. He's like, nigga, it's been 3 days. How do you know this song already? Like, it just came out. So it was a similar love for music that's the root of me being into this business, into like meeting Ken. And it's always funny to me to hear like people that you don't know that have such similar paths to you, and then you recognize why y'all click so much. To answer your question, Rich, I think it was Chris Platty. Chris used to listen to the On Deck TV podcast, and he would comment all the time. And he reached out, so similar to like what how I met Mo. And so we would keep a constant.
And just for context, who is Chris Platty?
He's a podcaster as well. He has a podcast, Rap Cave, I think is the name of. Please forgive me for not remembering that, because that's my guy. But Rap Cave, he talks about rap. He used to do a podcast about basketball and hip hop. And he had me come on there before we even met. It was similar to the situation that me and Mo have. And when AB and I decided to do a live show, he pulled up. So for our 10-year anniversary for On Deck, we did a live show, and Chris came and he brought Ken with him. And that's where me and Ken, I think, first met. And from there, Chris was like, man, it's cool since I'm in town. I listen to both of you guys. He, super fan of Dead End. And also, like, he fuck with On Deck as well. Big fan of that. And I'm not speaking out of turn saying that he's expressed that to me before. So he said, since we're all together, we should do some content. And we recorded. I don't even remember what it was that we recorded, Ken, but we recorded something. And just from there, Ken and I connected. I think I exchanged contact information with him and said, hey, if you ever need a fill-in or extra anything it may be, then I'm open to it. And that's where the relationship grew from there. At the same time, like you said, only doing On Deck, I did have aspirations to do other things. But it wasn't anything that the person AB that I'm podcasting with, he wasn't really interested in it at that moment.
Yeah.
I was interested in talking about movies and sports and all these different things other than hip hop as well. And I think Ken kind of picked up on that. And they had a lot of different entities that they did. And I would just slowly start to contribute when they needed me. And it just grew to the relationship that we have now. And it's the odd thing about it is sometimes you record with people and it's really not like you just do it because you're good at podcasts and they're good at it. But one of the strangest things about working with Dead End, like there's never been like I fit in so seamlessly. And if I'm wrong, Ken can correct me there, but like there are a lot of different personalities in Dead End, but it's never been a thing where I don't like him. Like I've always enjoyed working with everyone there. It's so strange because that's just not the normal thing that happens. Usually when you go work with different people, it's like I'm really cool off dude, or I don't have to record with him. But I've never had that thought in working with anybody there, and I think that's why it was able to flourish into what it is today because everybody's just themselves, and nobody really takes offense to. If you feel this way about something, that's fine. I may not agree with you, but we don't have to butt heads about it. We may have a great conversation, almost argument. Some people will call it about it, but I don't take it personal. And that's one of the best things about working with all of the guys over there. It's like we never take it personal. Like we've had real conversations and it didn't lead to like, oh, fuck you, man. I don't like it. It doesn't lead to that. It just leads to, okay, Spike's different or Mike's different, Ken's different, Rod's different. That's what it leads to. And I'm not judging you for it. So to answer your question very long-windedly, it just progressed into something because it's a great group of guys over there, and I was able to just blend in so well.
Let me ask you, well, the other thing, I know you just kind of touched on it, but where were you mentally when it came to podcasting? Like, was this an opportunity where you were looking at it like, man, I needed this to kind of keep going? Because I think I don't say we all, but anybody who's ever made anything or been a part of anything, you do have those moments of self-doubt. You do have those moments of impatience where it's kind of like, man, did you ever feel that? Or was it just like, man, because you talked about things that are normal. What's not normal for you is shooting your shot.
Right.
What was it about Ken that you were like, you know what, I'm just going to go out here and put this out there. Like, hey, if you ever need this, I'm available for you.
Because I felt like I would be a good fit. And
okay,
I liked what they do. And I had been challenged from someone in my friend group. I've talked about it on here before. One of my friends called me one day and he was like, yeah, you did On Deck, but like, what's next? Like, I don't like, that's fine. And he wasn't diminishing it, but it was a challenge as to like, okay, like, you have a podcast, that's great. Like, and you're good at it, it's fine. But like, how are you going to elevate yourself to the next level as to where people can understand the personality of who Spike Lee is? It's not just doing On Deck on a weekly basis and having one podcast. That was part of the motivation behind it as well. Like, you have to continue to develop the persona that I want to take it to the levels that I need to.
Makes a ton of sense. Let's flash back real quick. I want to go back to early Atlanta. Ken's moving up from Mississippi. Got a whole plan in place. You mentioned that was your plan, which makes me think that job never happened and you got right into it. Was that the case? Or you first get to Atlanta, did you actually work the
no,
was it computer science job,
yeah,
or did you get into it?
Yeah, it was computer science, programming, coding, something like that. I have to look back, but no.
Okay. Also, real quick, shout out to Volume 3. Hove, y'all talking about the books. I'll never forget, me and School were together. Pop the CD in, and he has that line at the beginning. If you like me right now, you're reading the credits, and me and School just looked at each other getting weak. That was a moment, man. Kids y'all never understand what it's like to get the book.
Don't know what that feel like.
Open it up. It's just a shout out to nostalgia.
Like, I'm sitting right here, right next to the radio, like just as he raps it, I'm like finger like under the words. Yes, it was fire.
Yeah. But going back, so you never worked that job. What happened when you got there, and what was the game plan?
Well, yeah, I was in school and I was working at Warehouse Music. Again, just the music connection. So I was working there, and the guys that I came with, they left. We were roommates, and their parents came, their mom came. So they had a safety net. So
Mm.
they ended up leaving and moving in with their mom and left me by myself.
Mm.
So turned into survival mode. So I ended up having another roommate.
Not to cut you off,
Yeah,
same
go
thing
ahead,
happened
bro.
to me. Like I don't know if me and Ken have talked about this before, but exact same thing happened to me. Moved
Yep.
down here with a group of guys, and they had a safety net. They left. Like we went home to Nashville one weekend as a group, and they told us like, hey, I'm staying at the crib, bro. I ain't going back. And which left me and AB like, huh? What do you mean? Like y'all niggas got an apartment with y'all name on the lease. So what, man? So
Yeah.
I ain't mean to cut you off. It just showed the
Nah,
similarity.
yeah, no, it's all good because those early 2000 years were rough. And sometimes it's good to kind of reminisce because I tend to block some of that stuff out, how hard it was. But yeah, I had another roommate who did the same thing. So it happened to me twice.
Damn.
And we ended up getting evicted, and we both our names were on the lease. And I went back to Meridian for a couple of months, and this was around 9/11. And I was there during that time, and I came back with my girlfriend at the time. So we both moved back to Atlanta and just kind of worked things out from there. And eventually we split up, but that's a whole other story. But yeah, so while I was in Atlanta, I went through a couple of different journeys. So I worked in a couple of different fields. So I started working in mortgages. So I was a processor, a loan processor. I started a loan processing company with some scrupulous people because that's a very shady business. Yeah, the other wild times where I would have to drive to the office, man, with a gun, stuff in the trunk, like because yeah, it was wild. It was wild because you just never know what would happen, So, so then eventually started working at Mortgage It and became a junior underwriter, and then left that, and then started working at AT&T as a with websites. And the reason and the how I got that job was because, and I'm going back to music again, I saw online radio about to take off. I had a feeling that it should be able to do something. So I spent 48 to 72 hours learning how to code a website with no experience from scratch because this program I used was Sam Broadcaster. And you could set up a web page that would play the songs, and every time the song would change, the page would refresh. But you have to code it in order to do that. So I had to go all the way back to the computer programming days and use that knowledge, learn HTML and coding and stuff like that. Take all of these songs that I had on my hard drive, program them in this app, code all that, set all that up to play on shuffle, and then stand up the website to play over on the internet and do all of that stuff. And I had a station up over the weekend, and first launch I had about 20 something to 30 people listening. And that experience got me the job at AT&T, and that's where I met Rod and everybody else.
So you at AT&T, you mentioned Rod. For context, who was Rod? What is his importance in his role in this journey?
Rod, yeah, so Rod was the one that took the idea and made it into a reality.
The idea being
Dead
Dead
End
End.
Hip Hop. Mm-hmm.
Okay, got you. And what year is this? Just like I said, because this is pre-podcast day, so it's not like this is something. I just want to make sure people know this isn't like, hey, podcasts are blowing up. Let's start a podcast. This is no, we're going to start a media company.
Yeah. So there's a lot to the story. I'm trying to condense it as much as possible. So
no, you're good.
So I'm in school. So I get my degree in business management, and I was going to go into trading, the stock market. I think that happened. I think when I was going to get my master's. So this was around 08, maybe 09. Yeah, it was around 08 because I just had my first kid. So I graduated, and then I graduated, and then I went back to get my master's in information systems. So part of that was that for like one of my final projects for graduation, I wrote out this whole plan to use the app to deliver music to people and hip hop content because the blogs were taking off and stuff like that. So we're around the blog era. And there was this Newsbin server. I think it was a Newsbin where I would get all kind of music and stuff like that. This was early, you remember you had Napster and all those stuff. But this was not Napster. This was something else. But it was a news server and they're still around. But and that's how I did the radio station. But part of the program was to basically, I built out this whole company using blogs and stuff. So I was going to start a blog and I was about to graduate. So I started working on that. I built the site and it was called What is Hip Hop? And while we were at work, we would end up on a music group email threads and everybody's talking about music. And we would all talk about music in the department we worked in, and somebody said, "There goes a Dead and Hip Hop Conversation." And I was like, "Oh, that's great for a show. Like, that's a perfect show name." Like, it just flowed. I just saw it, and it was so true. Mm-hmm. And I told him about it, and this was 2010, and we went to A3C with What is Hip Hop presents Dead and Hip Hop or something like that. But we went under the name Dead and Hip Hop. But What is Hip Hop was supposed to be a show, was supposed to be the main company, and Dead and Hip Hop was going to be the show that What is Hip Hop puts out, because it was going to be a website and then a show and then all this other stuff. Also around this time, I was also listening to a lot of podcasts, and this was when you had to upload them to your iPod manually. Yeah, so it wasn't downloaded. What you got, Spike?
So y'all went to A3C collectively, like you, Rod, FIFO, Mike. Like, what was that? Like, how did that come up?
It's really weird, bro. So,
and A3C is
the hip hop festival that was in Atlanta.
It's a festival in Atlanta.
Okay.
And one of the directors, managers, partners was I met her at AT&T. Shout out to Star, and she invited us, and that's how we were able to get press passes to go.
And this she invited y'all because you guys had been doing, like, the origin of it was you guys were talking on a thread, like you said, but then it evolved to it being videotaped in the parking lot. Was it when y'all got off work? Like, is that like we would stand here and had this thing in our head, like, we're gonna talk about hip hop and post this on YouTube, just us getting off work, normal, everyday, regular dudes talking about hip hop?
That's where it eventually went to.
So this was before that.
Yeah, this was before that. This was just because I reached out to Rod to create the logo for What is Hip Hop, because Rod, he's a graphic designer and stuff like that, as I mentioned earlier. So I was like, hey, I got this site that I'm working on. I need a logo. Can you create one? He created a dope logo, and then I just started putting stuff up because these things need time to build, grow, get traffic. You got to brand build, all the other stuff. So I wanted to go ahead and get a head start, so that way when I graduate, I could just go all in on it. And then I told him about the idea for Dead and Hip Hop. Now, behind the scenes, I didn't know he was already working on a trailer. And he worked on the trailer from video we recorded at A3C. And we all just went as Dead and Hip Hop under the name as press. So the three that went, it was Rod, Mike, and me. So we all went. And we were just interviewing people. I interviewed Ninth Wonder, that's up there, and a couple of other folks, the Artifacts and stuff like that. And we recorded all this footage, and then that was that, and then it was over. So and then Rod came in. I remember we was at work and we were at the lunch. It was like right in this little conclave area. He showed me the video trailer for it that he started working on, and it was dope. And this was maybe December, January. So the A3C festival happens around October. So he created all this stuff after that, just using the footage and stuff he had. And then I was like, okay, well, I got to do it now because you put all this time to it. I said, so cool. So I said, bet, let's run it.
So I just want to make sure I'm understanding right, and the people too. When you, Rod, and Mike went to A3C, it wasn't we're going into this as this is the vision that we have for the future. It was like, oh, we're three guys that work together that enjoy talking about hip hop. We have this connection that's going to be able to get us into A3C. And then Rod took the baton and he was like, well, you know what? Since we have this access and I know how to do this, I'm going to create a trailer for it. I'm going to make it a thing.
Yeah, I can't remember Mike's intentions, but I think it was just like, okay, we got free passes at A3C, let's go. But for me, I knew what I wanted to do. Rod was a videographer, and you work with a bunch of people. I'm not sharing my dreams and aspirations. It was Rod was probably the only one, because it sounds crazy. You're around a bunch of adults, and the odds of any of this stuff succeeding is crazy. But I've had small bouts of success, but it was always going to be like this solo thing that I was going to do because I could just do what I've always done. So, but yeah, that was it. That was like the end of it as far as we were concerned until Rod came and brought at least their involvement stopped there. Yeah, until Rod brought me to show me the trailer.
When did things become, I don't want to say real because they're real at that moment. When did it exceed your expectations, or has it exceeded your expectations? When was that first like aha moment? Like, yo, we really got something.
When people start subscribing and leaving comments, that is proof of concept. But
this is all on YouTube at the time, just to make
sure.
Yeah,
okay. It was on YouTube because I initially was going to build an app for a phone. Probably the realest moment was, of course, Kendrick Lamar coming across it is like the peak. But when you have
I want
artists,
you to talk about that because I don't think you ever really got into that.
Yeah, but when you have artists acknowledging what you've done and respecting your opinion, regardless of what it is, that's when it's like, okay, this is real. This is something that people wanted. And B is from Detroit, and he would have people come up to him, like hip hop artists come up to him and be like, yo, man, I really fuck what you're doing. Fuck with what you're doing. And some of the stuff we wouldn't even like sometimes, but they just respect it, So, and some of them were just even happy to get the coverage. So I was like, okay, we're fulfilling a need from the artist side. One of the things that I wanted to do while the tagline is no politics, no BS is like, bro, people out here lying. That's what I saw. Like, I remember the stores when everything was good. I remember just people just co-signing stuff that wasn't of quality. It was like, why is nobody being truthful here? And we we put the industry on notice, bro. Like, and it's not one of those things where I'm making it up. Like, this is what people have told B.
I got a question for you in that same vein. I too am from the generation of the Source XXL magazine. And I too felt a moment when the integrity was lost. And obviously I never did any kind of deep dive, but I always assumed that there was something with, whether it be labels, artists, favoritism, whatever the case may be, where people were showing special treatment to people because of those relationships, wanted to maintain them versus being honest about the work, like you just mentioned. As Dead End Hip Hop grows, or it began to grow, and even to this day, was it ever an issue keeping that integrity when covering it, when other people might have had different interests to say, hey, I can do this for you if you give me a favorable review, or this artist a favorable review. We can take things here. Has that ever happened, or is it always no? Once we're into this space and we're keeping it like this, I don't know how to be dishonest. I don't know how to sugarcoat what I feel about things.
We've always kept it as honest, and I think to a certain degree that's hurt us, in the space, because a lot of people don't like the honesty. At least on more of a mainstream level, when you're talking about guys like Eminem, some of the Odd Future cats don't mess with us. We've heard that firsthand. But most of the underground people respect it and appreciate it. But there's a ceiling with that. So you do it for the love, but I never wanted to compromise what we're doing. And we would be out, like we would see some of these rappers, and you just never know how it's gonna go when you run into somebody and they'd be like, "Oh man, yeah, I heard you talking shit about my stuff," but we never really had any issues. We never had any issues like that, in all honesty.
Yeah.
So, but nah, we never had this situation. We never been offered anything, any type of payola or anything like that.
Yeah.
So,
and I know Spike wants to get into that story, but just for the timeline's sake, from the time you leave that festival to you mentioned the Kendrick Lamar moment, how much time has passed since this? Are we talking some years?
it was some years. It was some years. So one of the things so I think it was right around when I was working. This was so long ago. I didn't understand YouTube. It was stupid to me. It was silly. It didn't make any sense. And I remember I was just talking to Rod about this Wednesday, and I asked Rod, I said, "I don't get YouTube. Why do people watch it?" And he said, "It's a time capsule." And that's all I needed to hear. It was like, it clear. I was like, "Oh, I get it. It's a place where people can go reminisce. Like, it has all these videos. It has these things." So that's the connection for me to understand it from a consumer level, because I don't understand it from a consumer level. I'm not going on YouTube. Like, why am I on here? But people are on it. So I don't always need to consume something in order to understand. I just need to know why people like it. And then I can take it from there if there's a market fit for it. And then I was like, oh, okay, I got it. This show will work on YouTube because people are already on here. I needed to know the psychological reasons why. So, and then, it's what everybody does. Everybody sit around and just talk among themselves and their friends about music. And they're always honest about it, which is why we never really did any ratings. We were like, nah, man, we just sit around and talk. And people longed for that. And we just got in early. And when Rod showed me the trailer, we went back to Mike and was like, yo, we're about to do this whole show. Okay, I'll come back to that. We were about to do this whole show. Then we went to B. Then we went to FIFO as well. They're also on the show. Also now, I played basketball with FIFO and B and Rod. That's how I met B. FIFO was also in the same department with Rod and I. So, but Mike was like, "No, I'm good," because Mike, and he'll tell you, he maybe even said it on air.
Typical Mike fashion.
Yeah, he didn't believe it. He didn't think it was going to work. But it was fine. We just keep it pushing, man. One monkey don't stop no show. And
That's your stand.
Yeah. And I never had any intentions of being on the show. I just wanted to produce the show. It was supposed to be 4 other people that would, argue with people. But when we lost Mike, I decided to be on the show. So then Rod turned into the producer editor. Because it was supposed to be, in my mind at the time, it was going to be Rod, this rapper named Nova. Shout out to Nova, Mike, and it was somebody else. That was the original cast members I had in mind. But it turned into 3 of us, and then Mike came right around.
You know what made Mike change his mind?
He came, we invited him on, and I think he enjoyed himself, but but I think he just saw that it worked. It was like proof of concept, and he enjoyed himself, and he freed him. And school, he was done with school, because that was one of the things he said earlier, is that he was involved with school. So at least that's what he told us was his reason for opting out. And I think later on he told us the truth and but and it just kind of took off. But we needed Mike though, and that was the thing. Like Mike represented a certain demographic, and I would sit and eat lunch with Mike every day, talk to Mike, so I knew him fairly well. We would hang out, go drinks, get drinks and stuff like that. We weren't the best of friends, but we had like that coworker relationship where we could sit around and talk, and so enough to the point where we can do a show eventually. But he would listen to stuff like Death Grips and all these other people that he would share with me. Beans, I remember he gave me a CD of Beans and stuff like that I'm familiar with, but I never consumed that stuff in the way that he did. I just have always been interested in all aspects of music, but I wasn't living the culture of that like Mike was. I was just like, oh, okay, let me listen to this because somebody said it's good. Okay, cool. I put it to the side, move on to the next thing.
Spike, I know you wanted to go into I don't know. They might tie in. So I just want to ask you this. And if they weave in, I'm sure you can do it. When did this become a business? When did it become a job for you? When it is like, I can leave AT&T and just focus full time on this because it's taking care of everything I need?
It was a business and a job day one for me.
Okay.
It wasn't that way for others right away. But for me, that was that. I'm like, because remember, I wrote a whole plan for it. I had a business plan for it. I had an idea for it, so it was already mapped out. I was working on the website, so it was always going to be a business for me with or without them. That's just how I approached it. To others at the time, I think it was it was more of a hobby. What you got?
That's a really good perspective that you have as far as it was always that for you. I think what a lot of creators who may listen to this show, and even my question would be, from day one, it was a business to you. What was the pitch to the people that you needed? Because you could have did it by yourself, you're right. But there were also, I'm sure, because you're a very smart person, you recognize like, well, I could use Rod for this. I could use Mike for this. I could use FIFA or B for this. What was it, or how did you pitch? Like, this has always been my vision. It may have been just a hobby for y'all, but if you could take this a little bit more serious as far as a business aspect, then we could really make this something. Was it something in you that clicked, and what was the pitch to them for you to do that?
I don't know if there really was a pitch, to be honest. I think we started out and we had success and it just started growing and we were just gonna ride it till the wheels fell off. And I think it served some needs for people on the show in terms of just, I think, their personality types too. I think with Rod, it started out as a partnership. It was dead end in partnership with Modest Media. If you go look at some of the early videos, it would have that on there. And he had the video editing and marketing stuff that I can do because I have a broadcasting background and experience in all of that. But he had just came out of school, so that was the thing he wanted to do. So it was one less thing that I would have that I have to worry about. So he fulfilled that part of it. With I can you met B. B's just down, bro. Like he's cool. He's all for the team.
Like, what you need me to do?
Yeah. But there wasn't this whole thing like, yo, man, this could be the biggest and best thing ever. I think it just kind of turned into that. I think there were exterior forces that motivated people to to stay around and continue it when they saw that it was like really dope, and people were like, hey man, what y'all got really got something going on that's dope. And people continue to do it. I think at the end of the day, it really all came down to music. Like they all really love music, and to sit around and talk about music and to see the comments, to get the recognition, to see people really appreciate what we did every week was satisfactory enough. The business part is where most of the issues came with us in terms on the back end, because it was the business for me, but less for others.
I got a question on that. We might get to it. I want to make sure I ask a few like key points. So I asked you earlier about when did you feel like you had made it in more or less words, and you had mentioned the acknowledgement, I believe, from Kendrick. What was that moment like? Spike said you never really, or he's never really heard the story of what went on. What is this? What year is it, and what's going on? What's happening?
Because it was Punch too, right? It wasn't just Kendrick; it was Punch and Kendrick.
Yeah. I think Punch may have came across it and showed it to him, but Rob Markman reached out and I think may have sent the DM or something like that, and Rod saw it and called me, and Rob Markman wanted us to call him. And I called Rob. Rob hit me about it, told me about it, and I called Rob Markman, and that's when he told me what was about to happen, that he was doing this interview and Kendrick Lamar was going to shout us out. He just wanted to give us the head up. I was leaving Fort Valley, so I was working at Fort Valley. I left AT&T and I started working at Fort Valley. I was working in the marketing department, and that's when I got the call. I just made it back into out of Macon, like right in the Tanger Outlet area. Locust Grove area, and it was
And what year is this? I'm sorry, what
To Pimp a Butterfly. The year
okay,
To Pimp a Butterfly came out.
Or so.
It was that, yeah, it was that. So what the story behind that and how it all happened, Spike, you might get a kick out of this, is that Q, right? So Q,
Yeah,
I've known Q since he was 17, 18. This is when we created Dead End Sports in 2013. And that started on Blog Talk Radio and this whole other thing. And Q would call in, and Q's this super smart, well-read, revolutionary ass brother, bro.
He Ice Cube and
Higher learning.
Yeah,
okay. Man, yeah. Extremely bright, very impressive for somebody that age. And Q would hit me up and text me. He was like, yo, he broke the code. And he was like, to pimp a butterfly, to pimp a caterpillar, Tupac. He said, then that's what he said. And things sometimes sound so ridiculous, like you just don't even want to say it. But one mantra I live by is that I've been wrong so many times. What's another? Like I've been wrong all my life about stuff. So if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. It don't matter. I'm not going to bat 100. That's just the way it goes. So I said it in the video, and I gave Q credit for saying it. I didn't even, because I was like, yeah, Q said this. And Mike was like, nah, that can't be it. And, it's in the video. And Mike, I think, if I recall correctly, dismissed the possibility of that even being a thing. But it was. And that was the one thing that captured the attention, because we were really the only ones on the internet aside. Well, there was Luke James, and then there was 3 Creation or something like that. There were other people on the internet, but nobody at the level that we were outside of the needle drop. The needle drop was very crucial to our early on success. But nobody was doing it like we were, and everybody was watching. So it made sense for that video to come across the radio, because it was new and fresh at the time. And somebody on this team watched it, sent it to Punch, or maybe Punch watched it. I don't know who did what. Showed it to Kendrick, and then Kendrick mentioned it on there.
What was that moment like for you?
Man, I thought I had made it, bro. Like it
Mhm.
was, it was. It's definitely because I we did a video about who's next, and Kendrick Lamar was my pick. And the reason why I picked Kendrick Lamar was because I heard Michael Jordan, and I was like, this guy can make thought-provoking, deep music, conscious music, and then he can make this shit with this bounce. And I'm like, oh my God, this guy got everything. So if the ball bounce right, he can make it. And that's how I picked Kendrick.
Quick question
Mhm.
from something you said earlier. You're working at this time. The people you worked with, did they know what you were doing as far as dead end hip hop? Or was it one of those I keep work and I keep could people come up to you and talk to you about what you
They
do on the
did.
side or anything like
Yeah.
that? Okay.
Yeah, they did. There
How did
was
that make you feel as well? Because there is a little bit of I don't want to know y'all that well. I don't want y'all to know me that well too. How did that make you feel, and what was that like?
I say a lot of crazy things. So, it's like you don't want people to know, but
Yeah.
I know people are not going to go digging through your archives. Like to find some of the crazy stuff I say now, and I've said back in the day that was outlandish. You fear that, but you would have to go digging like to find that stuff. That means you're looking for it. So the only way you would know is if you were an active listener. And if you're an active listener, then you don't care. And you also know
You're not
that's
gonna
just who
judge
I
me.
am. Right.
Yeah.
That's Ken. That's what he does.
Facts.
So it was weird for some. Like some of them were like, oh man, yeah, I watched the video, whatever. But some people discovered it just by being on YouTube. And it was like, wait a minute, that's such and such. The students that were working there that were in school would stop by, and some would just sit and talk and get advice from me about stuff that they were doing as well. But the interesting thing about what Dead End did was that's how I got the job at Fort Valley.
Mm.
Because the person I interviewed with, one, she was from Mississippi, and two, when we did the interview, she went and Googled my name and it popped up. And she was like, what you did with that, I want you to bring here to Fort Valley. And that's why she hired me, because it was cutting edge, or it was the future for that university that I was still kind of not in that new media sort of space. First day I got on the job, she sat a video camera down on my desk and said, I want you to live stream our commencement ceremony for the students graduating. And I had to figure that out and bring that to them. And their whole thing that they're doing now is I set all that stuff up. Yeah, I helped establish all of that stuff. Live streaming this, live streaming that. I did a whole parade. I did a whole Thanksgiving or homecoming parade from at Fort Valley with people on air actually giving commentary with multiple cameras. It was crazy. But that's how I got there. So yeah, every once in a while you'll run into somebody that was familiar, but not to the point where it was, uncomfortable.
This is just a curiosity question. When was the first time you got recognized? Like just out and about, someone say, "Ain't you came from Dead End?" Has that ever happened to you? I'm sure it has, but
Yeah, I can't remember the first time. I do remember it happens in random places too.
yeah.
Movie theater, grocery store, parking lots. It's just one of the wildest, the most interesting story I could tell is I was at a football game, one of them, and a guy. It was a preseason football game. I was with my in-laws, and this guy just happened, white kid sitting in the front, and he turned and was like, "Hey man, are you Dead in hip hop?" And I was like, "You came from Dead in hip hop?" I was like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah." He was like, "Oh man, I watch you all the time." Blah blah blah. And he asked to take a picture for me, and my uncle-in-law and my father-in-law took the picture and stuff like that. And they talk about that to this day, about that moment that I was recognized in some random game out of all of these people.
Yeah.
So but yeah, it happens.
That's cool, man. I just always like that because you strike me as a very humble, like just go about my business type of person. So it almost feels like that still might trip you out a little bit. Like I can't believe this is my life.
No, it's yeah, go ahead, Spike.
I was gonna say it's funny when those things happen in the sense of like it happened to me once in the airport. When people are always approaching and be like, "Do I know you?" And I was like, "Nah, bro, you do not know me." And then they'll mention like the show, and you're like, "Oh yeah, I do that, yeah." And then the second comment is like how family responds to it, because I'll be home in Nashville and like out with my mom or my cousins, and we used to do like local media in Nashville and interview rappers. So there would be people that come up and be like, "Hey man, this is such," and like you said, they still will talk about that to this day. And you're like, yes, that happened. Like I do that. So
Yeah,
I just thought that was ironic that you brought those things up.
yeah.
A couple more things. What I find fascinating is you start dead in hip hop. You go through your journey with that and where it kind of is leading, and obviously still going on today. When was the moment when you were like, you know what? Because this ties into not being satisfied, you know, just starting something. And you mentioned something I can relate to a lot, which is those ideas coming. Like there's constantly ideas, and I'm jotting down, making notes for it, making templates. All right, this can be a show. I just got to find out who can do it and when we can launch it, and so on and so forth. Was it always I want to branch out and talk about sports and movies and everything else, or was it just the opportunity? Because a lot of this stuff sounds like happen chance, almost like you right place, right time, mixed with my passion and my drive, and all these things happen. So, did you go into it saying, "Hey, I know one day I wanted to expand and do a little bit more," or was it just another story that, "Hey, this led to this, and here we are"?
I got lucky, and you know, you'll run into people that have been successful on various levels that will say that. You know, so many things had to happen for me to be in those right spots to meet the group of guys that I end up doing the show with. And they had to have like the right personality. Like Mike had to be Mike, and FIFO had to be FIFO, and you know, B had to be B, and Rod had to be Rod. Like you can't. It's hard to just ascend them that just randomly. Like you have to do a lot of interviews, and there was a real friendship that was built before and after, and during and after. That's how it lasted so long, because we really grew to love and respect one another. And you know, it's people say it all the time, but like family, right? So but I had to lose my job at Mortgage It, you know, and I had to be dating this girl who just got a job at AT&T, who just passed my resume to one of the hiring managers there, who interviewed me, who hired me, because I was going to go get my CDL license just to make money and drive truck, you know, before that, because my unemployment ran out. And to be on this team, and for Rod to come and be hired afterwards, for FIFO to be hired afterwards, to be on the same team. So yeah, that's all luck, chance, universe talking, fate, whatever word people want to use. And so yeah, I think you know, it's been a journey since that time, and it's been challenging, and it still is. And you had asked earlier, like, when did I leave corporate America? Well, it left me because of the pandemic. You know, I got laid off, and I was like, well, I'm gonna just go all in, and if it works, it works. If it don't, then you know, I have the education and skill set to do something else. At minimum now, 14 years later, everything that I've done, I can get a director, assistant director job in some company now. You know, so
That's fire.
So I was going to tell you, yeah, because knowing that everybody out there, man, pick up some skill sets, pick up some trades, some tools that you can use, fall back on, because it is a lot easier to say, you know what, worst that can happen is I'm back to doing what I was doing before this. You know what I mean? Like it's just the worst that can happen. So I might as well bet on myself and putting all the time in and everything else.
So real quick before you go, Rich, you're saying that corporate America left you at that moment. That was when you say, hey, you know what's the worst that could happen? Let's get a studio space. Let's invest in camera equipment. Let's invest in people, and let's really figure this out. Because I mean, I don't have a job no way. So like, what's the worst that could happen with this? Like, is that when you did that?
We were already working towards it. So I wasn't seeing my family. Like I would leave because Fort Valley is like an hour and a half from where I stayed. So I was doing that commute for 5 years. I would leave at 6:45, 6 something in the morning, and I would go there, and then I would head straight to the studio. And I would come back, everybody's at home sleep. I wouldn't see them until maybe the weekend, or maybe it's a day that I'm not recording. Because when we got the studio space, we had to get the studio space because we lost the artist factory. So, and I forgot what happened there. I think they sold us something. So we were like, all right, well, let's get our own spot. And Rod found a spot that we can get, and we went for it. We created the Patreon membership. That was another fight that I had. I remember debating FIFO. I was like, yo, people will, subscribe to what we're doing. This is where the market is going. I knew that because I was studying the online marketing space. I saw what these people were doing, selling memberships and their expertise and their knowledge to people out there, creating courses and all that other stuff. I saw it. I knew it would work because there's a demand there. That's where people were going. There was a demand for it. So, that's kind of always been the challenge that I had, is because sometimes I can see these things and it's hard to convince others that this is the move to make. And sometimes we move too late, but I was like, no, this could happen. The reason why we ended up doing it is, once again, fate. We were at B's video gaming bus party thing for his birthday, and somebody stole the camera from Rod's trunk. So we had to reach out to the fans to ask them to help us, to contribute donations so we can get another camera. And they came through. And then then Patreon reached out. We got on the phone with them. We created the thing, and we were off and running. Before anybody, I created a app for Dead End Hip Hop. Before anybody even had a Dead End app in the space. It was, and it's still out there. It's not the best now because it ain't been maintained, and they could have used some work then. But I have an agile sort of approach to things. It was like, man, let's get this thing up and we'll just make it better. It's called, they kind of build features on top of it because the features keep people engaged and keep people coming around because you keep adding to it. It's this new thing. And, but it was a way for people to consume the content mobilely, so there were a lot of cutting edge, innovative things that were done, in addition to creating the show. But yeah, I think COVID happened and everybody just got laid off. So I was like, well, things are working. So my wife had spent time building up her business. So I spent my first part of Dead End supporting the family while she stood her business up. So it was my turn. And we just switched. And that's how it worked out.
I was literally about to, I promise it's a perfect segue, because following something, chasing your dreams, means you kind of have to lock in one of the most selfish ways. That's kind of hard to explain, not maliciously, but a lot of things, unless it's urgent or is 100% needed of you, all your passion and all your time kind of goes into something else. Now, obviously, I'm sure your family is above that. However, there is an understanding of, hey, I really want to do this. There are going to be days where I'm working, having this commute, and I'm going to record. And you talked about seeing your family on the weekend. What was that like for you? And did you ever feel like, man, I'm really not showing up? Or was a partner? Because it sounds like you have a great partnership, great relationship, great marriage, in the sense of, hey, I did my thing, now you go chase your dream. Was there any kind of guilt that you felt about, man, I'm really missing some quality time with my family, but it's not in vain, but that feeling still doesn't go away? Did you ever go through that?
Not at the moment. Because
I mean, back when you were
first
grinding it out.
Nah. It was it, bro. Like,
Okay.
the kids were. My first son was born. No. I take that back. He was 3, 2 or 3 when I started. He was 2 going on 3, I think, when I started Dead and Hip Hop. So he was young, and so he grew up with it. And then my second one grew up with it too. It's all that they know, and my wife understood like everything that went with it as well.
Yeah.
So not in a disrespectful way, but it's just like, this is my dream, this is my passion. I talk about it all the time, like with her and stuff like that. So she knows, I understand. So I've been fortunate to have that, but I think even if my wife was less understanding, I don't think it would have stopped me. I think probably would have been divorced, because I'm going to go for this, and sacrifices that have to be made, and they were. So now 14 years later, over the last couple of years, I look back and I was like, damn. But I tried to definitely make sure I went on vacations and gave my time and did whatever events that I could do.
That's a really interesting perspective on it, because I feel the same way when you say, like, I don't know what you mean when you say it won't work or it's not going to work, which may have caused divorce or whatever it may be. I used to date a girl while I was doing this, and a question that she asked me, and she was like, well, when would you stop doing on deck or podcasting if you feel like it wasn't going to work? And that question just perplexed me, because I was like, I don't know what you mean. I don't understand what it doesn't work means. Like that doesn't make sense to me. And for you to hear you say it, and you have such an understanding family. I love hearing you when you talk about your boys and your wife, because you are so open with them about this process and what you do. Like from your kids editing videos to having conversations with what you see this thing being with your wife. I know what it's like to be in a room and have a conversation with someone who you love, and they're like, well, what if it doesn't work? And I'm not fronting when I say I just could not process that question. It made no sense to me.
That's how you know that you're doing what you're supposed to be doing. When the idea of it just doesn't even,
like, what does
I
that
tell
even
people
mean?
all the time, like when I started Culture Garden on the iPhone 11. No microphone, no nothing. It was just it happened so naturally that mostly everything else that I do in my life is like thought out, planned, and it was like, nah, we just gonna do it. Like it don't matter what we don't have. Let's focus on what we do have and let's start it. And ever since then, the idea of it not doing it just never even crossed my mind. So I definitely understand that, and that makes sense. And that's how I think that's a big sign of when you know you're walking in your passion, not even just your passion, but your calling. Like this is what I'm supposed to be here for. Like, you know what I mean? This is what I'm good at. This is what I love. This is what wakes me up in the morning. And we all have those things. And some of us are fortunate enough throughout this lifetime to maybe even get paid for it and earn a living off of it and things of that nature and just share that gift with the world. I think that's one of the most incredible things ever. I got one last question. I don't know if you have anything, Spike. I'll just go ahead and ask you, just as kind of we wrap up the journey of then to now. You mentioned Dead End Soul.
Mm-hmm.
You also mentioned your love of R&B and kind of how, if I didn't know any better, maybe R&B might be one of your favorite genres. Maybe it's higher than hip hop, just based off what I've learned from you in this conversation. Why do you think it took? You mentioned this idea was in your head from 2013, 2014, somewhere around there. Why do you think it took until now to see the light of day, or was it you that was intentionally holding it back? Because sometimes I know me and Spike joke about it. Whenever we do The Wire, one of the reasons I don't want to cover The Wire yet is because it means so much to me. And it's almost like when you start it, and R&B is a little bit different because it goes on and on and on. It's almost like when you start something, it's like, all right, this is my one, especially with movies, right? We talk about this movie. This is the only time I'm ever going to talk about this film. I want to get every thought that I've ever had about this film out right now, and then I'm going to put it to bed and we on to the next thing. That's how I feel about The Wire, right? It means too much. I want to make sure it's right the whole nine. Did you have that same kind of mindset when it came to Dead End Soul, or were there other factors that went into it to say, you know what? now's not the time to put this out. When the perfect time comes, I'll know, and I'll make sure I deliver on it.
Well, this is there's a lot in this question in terms of the answer. So, one, there's an increased demand I'm seeing for it. People have always wanted a show like this from us, even when I haphazardly threw the idea out there. One of the things that I did early on was I went and got every single domain possible with Dead End in it. And I've always wanted to do it. But I'm seeing like an uptick in a demand for this. I have an interest in storytelling now.
Mhm.
And there are a lot of stories that I'm hearing that I think are dope that I wouldn't mind sharing with people. But the main reason is that I put everything else and everybody else before me, including the business. And if there's one point of contention between my wife and I, is that she would say, when are you going to do something for you? And it was like, nah, I gotta make Dead End gotta be good. Dead End gotta be good. And Dead End gets 100% plus, even though you can technically go over 100, right? Can't go over 100%, but nevertheless, you know, of my time and attention. And she would say, well, yeah, but everybody's benefiting from that, but you. And when are you gonna do something for, you know, I'm like, well, this is me, right? Dead End is me. Like, this is my baby, my entity. Like, this is everything. So I am benefiting from it because I cannot remember who I heard say this, but I love creating opportunities for others. And that's one of the purest joys that I've gotten out of the last couple of years, just to see just regular guys, man, that work just at jobs to go enter a field that's hard to penetrate because it's so walled. And to see Mike meet some of his idols, his biggest fans, the people from Brother Ali to LP to Sadistic, all these guys that he is a true fan of, to appreciate him and his brilliance and his ability to articulate stuff and break stuff down in his unique way. So for people to see the gift that Mike has, no one would have seen that, you know, if it wasn't for this. For people to see what Rod is able to do visually and creatively, you know, for B and everything that he brings to the table in terms of his darkness and his love for gaming, FIFO to his sports knowledge. All of this stuff, man, they would just be working, bro. And for the last 14 years, even if it stopped, whenever it stops, you know, they will go down in history. This legacy is built.
Yeah.
And I get so much satisfaction and joy out of that. And it came in a sacrifice, a personal sacrifice to myself. But that's also like part of, you mentioned a man got to have a cold. It's kind of part of it for me. So I just wanted people to win. And I've always felt that I would have time to do the show, you know, but now that the space have changed, the industry have changed, and everything has changed, I don't want to require more time from other people to do stuff. Plus, I just want to be able to do it myself. I think I have fun doing it that way. Like, you know, with this particular thing, especially with the way I want to sell it. But so it took a while for the concept, because I could have easily just got up and did a Dead End hip hop sort of thing and talked about music, you know, and there will be parts of that. But I really want to do it in a different way. And I think that there are other formats that are out here that I like, and including politics and stuff like that and other stuff. So I think now there's a transition to Ken now, the personality
Yeah.
as well, but that's part of it. But I just gave everything that I've been doing to that end. And
That,
It's a
I was
beautiful
gonna say
answer.
that's an incredible answer.
And I'll even piggyback off that to add myself to what you were saying with I could tell where Ken gives me the leeway to being someone that works with them. It's like when they said something Sunday that was spot on. It was like, bro, I never know what you're going to say. Like you're like the wild card.
wild
It
card.
may be all the way over here, or it might be straight button down the chest. But for me, what he said to us, giving people the opportunity, what I've enjoyed so much about working with Ken and working with the guys there, it's like I'm able to be myself, and whatever it is that I say, be it crazy, outlandish, jaw dropping on the floor, or something that people can agree and navigate to, it's always accepted. And that what he explained about Rod and FIFO and Mike, I've always felt that same acceptance as well, which is why I work so well with those guys. Like it's he hit the nail on the head in the sense of like, bro, again, I would just be doing on deck if I wasn't doing all the rest of the things. And of course, we built this thing rich and we've done good earners. So there are other things that I've done. But from just a mass media standpoint, which is what I studied in college, it's just like Ken is not lying when he says, I'm going to step back and give you the runway to be the person that you are, to expose you to this fan base and to see how they react to you. And it just so happens that it's been a good reaction to me, which has made him and me flourish in this situation that we have together as far as working together. But everything that he said in that closing thing was genuine. It's not, a media answer. I'm just answering a question. It's like, it's genuine. I feel that as the personality that I am working with him.
I believe it 100%. That shows a lot about obviously Ken as a person, leadership qualities, and I can definitely relate. I understand just the love and the passion, and just the understanding that it's not always about us or not about you. I always tell people, man, I'm blessed to just work with incredibly dope people. Like I'm super fans of. Like I've said this on record before. Ray P and Spike Lee, my favorite podcasters, like point blank, and that's including everybody that you can think of that has a podcast. And I'm not saying that just to say it. That's just what it is. Like my biggest goal is to make sure Rachel gets her shit off, like in any way possible, anything I can do to help. And we're such genuine friends. It's to the point where I said Rachel can tell me tomorrow she don't never want to record with me again, which I know she would never do, but she could. And I say, all right, then bet. Well, how do I help you get to where you want to go, or do what you want to do? Because that's how dope that is, and that's just I think that's just who people are. Like you just got to be that. There's nothing like I'm not getting. I just want to see good people win, and people who are deserving, people who can really pour and change, make an impact in this space. And I just think that's incredible. And that goes Spike, that goes with Mo, that goes with Portia. Man, that's a big reason why I'm glad that Portia's with us once a month, because when she had the frequency, man, she, like I said it before, that was the very first time I've ever recorded on a podcast. I was a guest on her show. First time ever. And to see her put that down and now pick it back up, it's like, nah, you ain't putting it back down no more. Like you got a talent to share. I think that's an incredible thing. And I don't know. Ken, you got anything you want to close it out with? I don't have any other questions. I'm just extremely grateful and want to give you your flowers for everything that you've built and just the way you carry it. And just I can see the way that people respond to you. And it's all genuine. Like genuine people know genuine people. And it just feels like good energy every single time that you put in things out. And you yourself, I feel like this is who you are. Like, you know what I mean? It's not an act, it's not a gimmick. And there's something to be admired about someone who had a vision to say, you know what, this is the plan. Like there is no plan B, because this is going to work. And to see it come through, and you're finally getting able to have that chance to do something for yourself, I think is well deserved. And I just want to salute you for that. And we appreciate you coming on. But I definitely want to leave the closing words for you if you have any.
Yeah, and I've been grateful to come across talented people. Sophie, Kevin, Jalen, Isaiah, Low Mid when Low Mid was there. just Khan was one of our first editors, Jay Burritos, and of course, present day, like Nick and Spike. Like I'm always keeping my eye out for like talented people, and you kind of know it when you see it, and you also know if it fits, but you also have to test to see if it fit as well. Like I could suspect, I was like, oh man, yeah, I think this will work, but how will people respond to it? How will the audience respond to it? So there's always the business part of it, instead of just throwing stuff out there. So I think Nick, Jalen, and Spike are incredible talents, and I'm not just saying that because I talk to them all the time, and I'm on the shows with them, and there's a chemistry that all of us have. I never forget, like the moment I met Nick. Nick is incredible at what he does, and then I saw the same magic in Spike, and then I saw like when we all were together. And same thing for Shelton. I don't want to leave Shelton out, and 12 Cal as well, but if they weren't, then we wouldn't be working together, and I think that just Chris Platty, bro, like just bringing him on to the network again, just luck and happenstance, like, and just him randomly inviting me to this thing, to running into you, Nick, listening to the show, coming across it, moving to Atlanta, recording there. And I think you and Nick ended up meeting up at, and y'all.
That's what really got me, like you said, even
crazy,
beyond the Chris
bro.
Platty, was me and Nick linking up. I don't even remember how that happened.
Was it
but
at
it's
a
like what you
barbershop?
said. Yes. Yeah, I introduced him to my barber, but that was later on.
Okay, that was
even
later.
before then, I can't even remember what it was, but Nick and I just clicked. Like I just recognized something to him, like what you were saying, Ken, and it was like, well, I think he started mentioning me to you more, and then you start opening yourself up to like, okay, well, yeah, Spike can get on here and do this, and then you seen how I was interacting with the rest of the people, and that's how it opened the door to do just so much more stuff. It's so much coincidence in these things, like it's so much. And then once you see it, the talent in like what Ken has, what I have, what you have, Richard, like noticing, like, oh, there's something there. Like there's something there. Let's lean into it.
Yeah, man. It's like that Benjamin Button, man. Curious Case of Benjamin Button. There's a scene in there where it literally portrays everything that had to happen to lead up to, like, there's a moment where someone gets hit by a car. But there's so many times from the time she woke up until that moment, they detail every single thing that had to fall into place for that to even happen. And that's how life is.
Yeah, man. Just thinking about the future of Dead End, and you mentioned like when Mike left last year, like he's still my brother, still love him, like, and he's still around. But there comes a time where everybody's like, you know what, I got to go do other stuff, and from a business perspective, man, bro, since we started, I've had contingency plans, and just thinking about what happens if this happens, right? Because you have to. I mean, I'm a computer guy too, right? So I believe in redundancy. So, so being prepared, but more importantly, just building something that is a brand within itself, and people know and can rely that when they click play, they know what they're going to get. And it's just like when you're watching The Temptation, it's like, well, the temptation was always be the Temptations, because people know that when I put on the Temptation album, they're gonna sing their ass off, regardless of who's in the group, and the Temptation will live forever. And when David Ruffin left, they still had hits and they still kept going. We saw what happened with David Ruffin. I don't never want that to happen to Mike. Now I'm trying to use that as an analogy, but the point is that building something that people connect with, but you need personalities, you need talented people, because without any of that stuff, it won't flourish. And we were able to educate, entertain, and inform, and do it on a level that people connected with. And now the competition is fierce and everybody's fighting for that. But we're still around and we're still here. And I think my desire, my hunger to win and get the recognition that I've always felt has been shunned in this industry and keeps me moving, every day. And to be here, I mean, we're still one of the few shows around that's still around, bro. There's so many people that are gone. Like it's crazy. But yeah. So, and I think just preparing for the future. If it's not hip hop, then what is it? We grow old. Politics is a thing. Movies, TVs go on forever.
Yeah.
Sports is forever.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm blessed and I'm fortunate, and I'm gonna keep going until I'm done, until I'm exhausted, until I'm like, all right, I think that's it.
Yeah. When it's time, but sounds like that's a long way away. If they don't know already, you can't tell them where they can find you, where they can find your work, your socials, the whole nine.
Yeah, so on Twitter, not X, you can find me at Kenneth B. Inge. On Instagram is KB Inge, but I think everything links from Twitter. I think there's even a Blue Sky account. I don't use it, but if you're on Blue Sky, you can follow it just in case something changes. But yeah, I mean, if you just go to Twitter, it probably links to everything. In regards to the show, of course, it's Dead in Hip Hop Frames per Second. Is the mic still on? And Dead in Sports every week. I can't tell you the last time I haven't missed a day since this thing started. It's crazy.
Yeah.
So yeah, you'll more than likely always hear my voice. And yeah, man, and that's it. That's it. That's where people can find me.
It's understood, man. Spike Lou, any last words?
To the bookworms out there, thank you for allowing Rich and I to nerd out. This is a conversation that we really wanted to have because that's the progression that we want to go in our media journey. So just listening to Ken, again, I podcasting with him multiple times per week, like we always talking, texting or whatever it may be. But to have the conversation on this platform and just allowing us to nerd out, we appreciate y'all for listening to this and sticking around to it. We want your feedback and comments on it, awitb2022 at Gmail. Let us know what you thought about the conversation. Of course, always leave your comments on Spotify or wherever it may be that you listen to the podcast. But thank you guys for listening to this, and thank Ken for sharing the story. Again, allowing us to nerd out as media people and wanting to grow our media presences to what he has.
I like the bookworms too. That's good.
Yeah. Officially a co-author, Ken. So we appreciate you. We'll see y'all next week for chapter 26. Make sure you get better this week. We out.
Peace.
Peace.